There, welcome to Bible Slash Chat. Kevin, hello.
Hello, John. How are you?
Why the demeaning tone? Just
I didn't
kidding.
mean it as demeaning. I think that might just be my standard tone.
Hello, John. Wow, hurtful. That's really hurtful, but it's fine. It's fine. I'm okay. I'm okay. Hey, we had a question that came up, and I thought
Yeah.
it's actually a really helpful question. One of the issues that's kind of hotly debated these days is issues of men's and women's roles in marriage and how
Mhm.
marriage is supposed to work. We are complementarians.
Right.
We have lots of texts that we would use to defend that.
Right.
But someone asked the question, it's an interesting one. All the texts that we would use to defend it seem to come from the New Testament.
Mhm.
But what about the Old Testament? So
Yeah.
God is a God who doesn't change. Were roles the same in
Yeah.
a sense? What was going on in the Old Testament when it comes to marriage?
Yeah.
Fill us in on your thoughts on that.
Good question. I'd say, yeah, we often go to the New Testament because that's where Paul is giving us the building blocks of the church, right?
Yep.
He's trying to teach people what life looks like, especially Gentiles who weren't raised in synagogue or
Mhm.
church. So they have no foundation of things. And so he's trying to lay that. The fun thing is he's quoting the Old Testament in
Yeah.
many cases. He does it over and over. But just to go straight there to the Old Testament, for example, where marriage is instituted in Genesis 2, where God says in the creational reality of Genesis 2:18, Yahweh God said, "It's not good for the man to be alone. I will make him a helper suitable for him." And then he makes his wife, right? He makes
Yeah.
Eve. So just that design of God and saying, I will make a helper suitable for him. The helper is the accessory role
Yeah.
to the male's mission. Not to say they don't both share it. They're both made in the image of God. You see that earlier in the
Yeah.
text. But as far as the role goes, he's specifically designing the woman, the wife in this case, to be the helper suitable for the husband. And so there is that complementary design there. It's
Yeah.
not just I'll make another man and they'll be together.
Yeah.
Another human or the woman's going to be kind of like the man in every way except not. Just
Yeah.
it's not that. It's actually designed to be complementary. So that's there. And then as far as that's the teaching of God explicitly, and then also to go to Proverbs 31, for example,
Yeah.
where it talks about the excellent wife, for example, like that. There's lots of wives stories in
Yeah.
the Bible, but as far as when the Bible is teaching on what an excellent wife is, you get demonstration of what an excellent wife is going to do.
Mm.
In 31:10, Proverbs 31:10, an excellent wife who can find for her worth is far above pearls. We could basically read the entire thing,
Yeah.
but what's interesting is she's industrious in
Yeah.
lots of ways. Eve is, to bump back there for a minute, Eve is the mother of all the living. She is highly fruitful. Somebody described it as Adam obviously carries the seed. The woman is supposed to be fruitful. She is the amplifier of everything
Yeah.
for his strength, his potential in that. And so she's the one. Somebody said Eve is basically like, or Adam without Eve is like an acorn on a driveway. It's like it has
That's good. Yeah.
has no potential, but man with woman is highly fruitful. You see the woman being incredibly industrious. In verse 14, it says she is like merchant ships. She brings her food from afar.
Yeah.
She's focused on the household. You see that in 15, and she rises while it is still night and gives food to her household and a portion to her young women, which is demonstrating that the household in that day and age was kind of an economic entity,
Yeah.
something bigger than just her immediate children. She is buying things. Verse 16, she makes plans for a field and buys it. From the fruit of her hands, she plants a vineyard. She, what is it? Extends her hand to the poor. She's generous. Verse 20, she stretches out her hands to the needy. She is clothing her house in scarlet. Verse 21, she makes coverings for herself. Her husband is known in the gates when he sits with the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them. She gives belts to the tradesmen. On and on it goes.
Yeah.
And so just to kind of highlight, I think it is helpful to point to Proverbs 31 and to say that's not the 1950s housewife necessarily. The stigma of, staying home, looking nice, having
Yeah.
dinner on the table at 5.
Yeah,
It's
A-line skirts and dinner on the table.
yeah, it's
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
it's
but
not
that, like,
necessarily wrong. It's just not the fullness of what women were created to be in God's economy, and
Yeah.
so specifically wives.
yeah,
So
totally.
you see this, the proverb, the excellent wife is someone who is highly industrious, generous, economical, like
Yeah.
caring for her home.
Yeah.
And that's the amplification of the man's.
Of what a helper looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super helpful. So what we would say is like that complementary role, male headship,
Mhm.
male provision is still the primary thing.
Yeah.
And then under that, she's helping to make those things a reality
For sure.
in various ways.
For sure.
So that's super helpful. So that like is in a sense like a structure into which Paul then gives specific direction.
Yeah. Paul's basically taking that and then bringing it into the New Testament in Christ, where you have a believing husband and wife or one or the other,
Yeah.
and saying, here's what these roles are. Like
Yeah.
God made the user manual for husbands and wives. Here it is,
Yeah.
and so he's sharing that. It's something that's it doesn't change as
Yeah.
it goes from the Old Testament to the New. So
Yeah.
strict continuity there.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
So we have so those structures, even though in a sense culture has changed dramatically
Mhm.
over the course of the writing of those texts. So you have Genesis, which is Moses,
Mhm.
fully ancient Near Eastern. Then you have Solomon in Proverbs. He's writing maybe around 900 BC, and then
Mhm.
you have Paul writing at the turn of the millennium. And all of those things, cultures have shifted drastically, radically, and yet God's plan for marriage is always the same.
right.
Yeah, because it's coded into creation.
Yeah, and it's expected that we're going to see different ideas of what that looks like. Romans 1, different ways of trying to throw the user manual out and do it better.
Yeah.
But God's design is actually the best. In fact, Eden, the Garden of Eden, the word Eden means delights. And so
Yeah.
it's like, this is how God designed us to be happy and
Yeah,
function. So it's
Totally.
sweet to see that.
That's awesome. Super helpful, Kevin. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that's helpful for you. If you have questions on that or any other topic, you can always email us at info@faithbibleoc.org. Thanks so much.